Ironman. Just what is it all about? Is it just a race, a measure of achievement and endurance? Or is it more than that? An opportunity for a new understanding of ourselves? Is it then a freeing, a liberation from limitations, both real and imaginary? Whatever it is, to each participant, philosophically and physiologically, it is the supreme test. This is the Budweiser Ironman Canada Triathlon Championship. Hi, I'm Ted Reynolds, and with me is Steve King, certainly Canada's most knowledgeable commentator when it comes to this particular sport. Now, Steve, I've covered an awful lot of sports through an awful lot of years, but I don't think I've ever encountered one that has the physical and mental demands that this has. Tell me about the preparation these people go through.
Well, there's no doubt about it. This particular race is the longest race in Canada when it comes to triathlons. These guys have been working all year for this one. A lot of preparation, not just the physical, but a lot of mental preparation, as you mentioned, Ted. And this is the big one. They're putting it all on the line today. This is what they've been honing their skills for during the course of the year.
And my, they've got a long, long way to go.
They certainly have, Ted. 2.4 miles of swimming, 112 miles of biking, and to round it all off, 26.2 miles of running. And you can see some of the nerve-wracked triathletes as they prepare to enter the water. We have in the field today 619 men and 76 women. One more time, come on supporters, let's hear for these triathletes as they're about to set off on the 1988 Budweiser Ironman Canada Triathlon.
Getting ready for the official start now with civic, provincial and federal officials from the Pentiction area taking part.
And there they go. What a beautiful sight it is. Almost 700 triathletes taking off into the water. 7 a.m. start, but the sun is starting to rise, and also rising 3,000 balloons set to signify the start of Ironman Canada 1988. The swimmers there, you can see nearly all of them are wearing wetsuits today. The reason not being the conditions in the water. We understand temperatures are good, around 19 degrees. It's not too choppy. There was some wind last night, but today looks a lot calmer. The wetsuits there today are going to be used actually to gain some speed. It has been noted that swimmers can go up to 2 to 3 seconds faster per 100 meters. And taking the lead already in the early stages, you can see 19-year-old Dean Lindell from Victoria, a man who was forced to drop out last year in this race when he was doing so well, but right now he's opened up a lead. You can see the pilot kayakers there leading him through so he doesn't go off course. It's very easy for these swimmers to sight their way. You can see he just looks up a couple of inches, sees those balloons, knows he's on a straight course towards Sage Mesa. The first turn point will be at 1.8 kilometers, and there you can see Dean Lindell approaching that turn. What a great shot that is. This is the chasing group, and you can see now they are drafting off each other. Don't forget, drafting is allowed in the swim portion. That means they'll be as close to the person's feet in front as possible. There are some things they have to watch for, though, when it comes to drafting. If the man in front of you or the lady in front of you is not going on a straight course, that's going to make you go off also. So you do have to keep sighting a little bit, even though you will gain valuable time by cutting through the clear water that the person is drafting ahead of you.
But there's nobody to draft in front of Dean because he's been in front since this started on this triangular course. Up to the top, you can see the star indicates the longest leg. Then they come back down, actually going almost due south and then cut across again to the finish line.
And it looks to me like Dean is going to get a sub 50-minute clocking if he can keep this up. His time, he's made the turn, 19:40. That's a very fast time for 1.8 kilometers.
Anything under 50 minutes is considered to be superb, and right now he is on that sub 50-minute pace, and the chasers have not been able to gain any ground at all, although these two right behind are stroke for stroke behind Dean Lindell.
And those two are, in fact, Michael Flaherty from Yeovil, England, and Darcy Lytle from Bedder Crossing. Both of these men, very accomplished swimmers. Michael Flaherty has swum for Great Britain before, as well as playing water polo for them. But there you can see, opening up quite a large gap right now. We understand it's almost a minute on these second two. And Dean has quite an amazing background when it comes to swimming. He's been a top nationally ranked age grouper for many years. And last year he was the winner of Canada's longest swimming race, the Scaha Lake Ultra Swim, 7.5 miles, and it takes place here in Penticton. So he's very, very familiar with the waters of Lake Okanagan and Lake Scaha. There's the pack. You can see them now, over 600 swimmers there. And they'll be coming in up to 2 1/4 hours for this 2.4-mile swim. That is the cut-off time. But here is our leader, Dean Lindell, putting in a remarkable performance, looking very solid out front. I don't think anyone's going to be able to catch him now. He is heading towards the SS Sycamus. And that will be where he makes the final turn with just over 700 meters left to the transition area. You can see our second and third places there, neck and neck. That's helpful for them. They may be able to make up a little ground on Dean in the final 700 meters. One thing I'd like to mention about Michael Flaherty, you can see in second place there, he's a 31-year-old Royal Navy petty officer who represented Great Britain also in a relay triathlon from London to Paris. And we'll return with more of the Budweiser Ironman Canada after this.
Brought to you by Budweiser.
Well, this swim is being covered by planes and helicopters and canoes and power boats, and here comes the rest of the pack, and in it is our First Lady, Paula Johnson, and she's really only about 4 minutes behind Lindell, and that means she's going well.
She certainly is, and you can see how easily identifiable the ladies are. They're the ones wearing the yellow bathing caps. But the time a little slower than we saw last year when Catherine Che came out of the water in 53.34. You can see someone just got hit there. That's one of the other things the swimmers will have to watch for when they're drafting. Someone kicking you in the face or chest could put you into trouble. Again, though, we talk about wetsuits. One of the nice things about them is that you can turn on your back and signal for help. You saw going through in that pack another 2 ladies there. So we have 3 ladies have made that final turn and are heading towards the transition area.
There's the old Sycamoose. That's the final turn, and Lindell's lead has built up a little bit through this second leg. What he has to do now is hold it.
Another great shot of Dean, and you'll notice he's wearing a full-length wetsuit there. Some of the triathletes prefer not to have sleeves. They say that you lose some feel for the water, but judging by the time Dean's recording now, he's certainly not lost his feel for the water. And again, I believe we can look at a sub-50-minute clocking. And indeed, if that is the case, that will mean he is averaging well under 13 minutes per kilometre.
There's the old Sycamoose over on the shore, indicating the final turn for the swim home.
That's right, Ted. It's one of Penticton's heritage landmarks. And helping us with today's coverage is Michelle Gibson.
Competition where Dean Lindell is still in the lead of the Budweiser Ironman Canada.
Oh, the sun right in your eyes, in the water, wearing goggles, it's a little difficult to see what is just in front of you.
It is, and you can see that he asked the kayaker there to come back a little ways. They mustn't get too close to him because he's not really allowed to draft off the kayak. But indeed, as they turn back east towards the transition, that sun is glaring in their eyes, so it's a little more difficult for them, but it's a very, very well-marked course.
And it was a good lead of 2 minutes and 39 seconds.
But you can see how these guys are now helping each other. They've formed a line. Someone is spearheading this second group, and they're drafting off each other. That will cut down their time. It's rather like sitting behind a speedboat when you're water skiing. You get clean water there. The break has been made, and there's our leading lady. It is indeed Paula Johnson going very well. This lady is a professional triathlete. And I understand she's made the final turn at around 46 minutes. That puts her 8 minutes behind our leader.
The leader is Dean Lindell. He's heading for the finish of the swim. We'll be back. Dean Lindell, who's been on a sub-50-minute pace, fast approaching the beach, and the large crowd that gathered very early in the morning and waiting for him, and for all the rest of them, the bicycles. They've only got 112 miles to go on two wheels.
And you can see some of the innovations that we have on the bikes nowadays. When this event first got underway in Hawaii in 1978, there were bikes around $50 in value. That's for the whole thing. Right now, you can't even get the shoes for $50. We have almost $1 million worth of bikes and peripheral materials. And you can see some of the stuff that's been left in this transition area. See the way they put their helmets there and the food that's available to them. Potassium for bananas, very popular food, but coming up to the transition area, very little ways to go. And here he is now. You can see him standing up. You can hear the cheers of the spectators. It is indeed Dean Lindell, well clear, looking back to see the distance between him and the second place men. His time is indeed going to be under 50 minutes. You can see him already preparing to strip off. He's got his cycling gear on there ready, all his clothing ready. They'll just strip off that wetsuit for him, and off he'll go onto the bike portion with 112 miles of cycling ahead of him. His time, 49:32. That is in fact the second fastest official time for the swim portion. The fastest time held by Peter Schmidt, set last year 49:16. Don't forget to set a record for individual segments of this triathlon. You do have to finish the entire Ironman.
Dean giving himself no chance at all to even slow down. He hasn't stopped running since he hit the beach.
This is quite amazing. You see the speed with which they make the transitions. When we first got going with triathlons in Penticton on a short course triathlon, the first man took 3.5 minutes. You can see right now Dean Lindell is on his bike within 45 seconds of completing the swim. That's simply amazing, but every second counts.
So he is up and away before anybody else has hit the beach.
50 minutes and 41 seconds.
But the number 2 man is now wading ashore.
And it is Michael Flaherty from Yeovil, England. This is where he should be, in fact, but he's not going to be able to hang on to second place. I very much doubt it. This man has done quite well in Nice on 2 or 3 occasions, but this is his second Ironman. He's completed in Hawaii before, but around 12 to 13 hours, so we expect him to move backwards from the swim.
And now they're beginning to come in droves.
And coming in third place is young Darcy Lytle from Better Crossing, a multi-time winner of the Coltis Lake Swim. There he is. He should be very pleased with that time, just over 51 minutes. There's quite a group behind him, and in that group, there you see pre-race favourite Ray Browning from Park City, Utah. But coming in now, something we're waiting for. Look for the yellow cap. There she is, Paula Johnson from Tallahassee, Florida. This is a professional triathlete, one of the national triathlon team that are here. And in second place into the transition area to collect his bike is another professional triathlete. It is 26-year-old Ray Browning.
We got Ray Browning, number 003.
Lindell.
The age grouper, not high numbers. Okay. Good swim. Seems a little short. Time. You're just over 50 minutes now.
So Ray Browning wanting to know what's going on ahead of him there. When he hears the name Dean Lindell, he may not be familiar with that, but he's certainly familiar with the fast time that Dean recorded on the swim. And there is the 31-year-old Navy Petty Officer from England, Mike Flaherty, going out in third place on the bike. But our leader, Dean Lindell, the 19-year-old from Victoria, on the out and back bike course, 56 miles ahead of him before he makes a turn. But don't forget that 56 miles includes the undulating Richter Pass, the dreaded Richter Pass that many of these cyclists have been training over for the past few months. And again, in second place, it is Japan's Ironman champion, Ray Browning.
So far, only a few bicyclists out, but a lot of swimmers still to finish. And now we're in the middle of the pack of swimmers. And some of these are not in anywhere near the shape that the first 2 or 3 swimmers were.
Yes, we have to remember, Ted, that a lot of these people are in this race because they want to finish. There are many first-time Ironman triathletes in the race, but also some of them need to conserve some of the energy that they have. Let's not forget the lead men out there, many of them are professionals. But the men you see coming in now are also very good class athletes, and they will be assisted by some of the 3,000 volunteers from throughout the South Okanagan.
And there from underwater, the yellow bathing cap of Paula Johnson, the leading woman, less than 8 minutes behind the superb time that was posted by the male leader, Dean Lindell, and she had a great swim.
She certainly did, and I want to point out that this is Paula's very first Ironman distance triathlon. She recently completed the Gulf Coast Triathlon held in Panama City, Florida, and placed third in that, and that was a half Ironman triathlon, and she did a time there of 4 hours and 22 minutes, so a very fast time, and her swim time would equate to about 14 minutes and 45 seconds per kilometre. You can see her ripping the tag off there. That's where the official times are taken. There's our second place lady, and that is the 26-year-old Terry Martin from San Diego. She's extremely happy with this one, I'm sure. A very fine placing at this stage, and this lady could well hold on to this position. She's done extremely well in the past, but this is her first time competing here in Penticton.
A wild flurry of activity, of course, every time that they come to the transition area. This is by far the busiest part of the course, no matter whether they're going from swim to cycle or cycle to the run. Whoops.
Indeed it is, Ted, and lots of adrenaline pumping, and one lady whose adrenaline will certainly be pumping right now is this lady leading right now. It is Paula Johnson, the professional triathlete, a member of the Cormax team, doing her first ever Ironman triathlon, as we mentioned, but she's had a number of victories in this past year, but everything has been geared towards this race. One of the co-directors of her team, Mark Wendy, told me this is the woman to watch today.
Number 15. And that's Paula Johnson. There's our first lady out there.
And she is out, heading 56 miles out to the turnaround, and then 56 long miles back in.
And there is a teammate of hers, that is Karen Drat. She's also a member of that Cormax team, and this is another lady that we were told to watch for. She could certainly place in the top 5 today.
But a long way out now on the cycle course, and still looking very, very good is our youthful early leader, Dean Lindell of Victoria.
But here's one man he's certainly going to fear, the 26-year-old Ray Browning. And in third place still is our 20-year-old from Vedder Crossing, Darcy Lytle, who's a chemistry student and a lifeguard. He is being followed by fourth place man Michael Flaherty from Yeovil, England. And Michael is presently making his way up Main Street, heading south.
But the majority of them still in or approaching the transition area, as is Doris Brett, back for the second year, competing along with her husband Mike.
And the other lady you see there is Barbara McNair from Peachland, not too far from Penticton, and she competed in this event last year.
Some people look a little bit wobbly as they come out of the water.
Some do, but coming in now, there is a man who decided not to wear a wetsuit, and obviously he's got enough body fat that he didn't have to worry about that. But back out onto the cycling course, there's our leader, Dean Lindell, moving very well. You can see he's on a slight grade right now, but he's moving very fast indeed, and if he's able to maintain the sort of pace we're seeing him do now, we could be in for a new record for the bike portion. That record presently held by Steve Wallach, a time of 5 hours, 4 minutes and 1 second, and that time was set last year when Dean finished in the top 10 after the bike portion.
We're back at the Budweiser Ironman Canada, and still they come out of the water to the transition area to board their bicycles, but these people are not moving quite as quickly as did the leaders.
That's right, Ted, but let's remember they have plenty of time to the cut-off 2.25 hours in which they have to finish the swim portion. Getting some medical attention here is 31-year-old Michael Roberts from Boston.
Where are you? Where are you? You know where you are?
Yeah, I'm fine.
You can see they're asking him where he is, just in case he's suffering from hypothermia. But this man is known as Mad Mike. This is, in fact, his 5th Ironman event this year. A phenomenal performance, and he wants to go out and do a double Ironman next weekend after this event here in Penticton.
Out on the course, a little cool drink feels very good for our leader.
I'm sure it does, and the amazing thing is he's able to maintain that aerodynamic position while he does take on that liquids. It is extremely important that these triathletes take in liquids every 10 minutes or so. Vitally important that they keep their liquids up. They don't want to get dehydrated. Temperatures are rising, and indeed this lady out front, Paula Johnson, well clear of the field. They're making the turn now. This is our leader making that turn towards the Richter Pass, a climb of 700 meters.
And there's the course, as you can see. The flash is at Vesuvius, then they make that sharp right-hander and up the hill. It's a tough hill for an old car, let alone for a cyclist.
Indeed it is. And here's Dean picking up some aid from one of the many aid stations out on the bike course. You can see how well stocked they are with supplies. 50,000 cookies on hand for these triathletes. 700 took to the waters this morning. Most of them now out onto the cycle course. Dean has quite a lot of climbing ahead of him, but he has about 18 miles to the turnaround point at the top of Richter Pass.
And what they do have is really pretty good weather conditions. This is desert country, this part of the Okanagan. This is just as much a desert as is Nevada.
Indeed, and the average temperatures are around 76 degrees Fahrenheit. You can see some of the sweat on the brow of the second place man, Ray Browning. This man knows what he's got to do today. He will be aiming for a sub 9 hour clocking. And don't forget our record for this course, 9 hours and 12 minutes, set by last year's winner, Tom Price, who's also back in the field again today.
And now our lady leader, Paula Johnson, makes the big turn, and she heads up the Richter Pass.
And Paula not only wants to win today, but she wants to beat Julia Deck's record of 10 hours and 28 minutes.
Dean Lindell now approaching the turnaround point. He's gone over the summit and down the other side to this turnaround point. Dean Lindell, the first man through, 56 miles out. The best thing to do is not even think about the fact that you've got 56 miles to go back.
And if Dean is able to maintain this pace, I believe we could see our first sub 5 hour clocking for the bike portion. This is the fastest time any person has made to the turnaround point on the bike. You can see him picking up bananas there, a little potassium. That'll fuel him for the journey back home. They'll be making the downhill journey back to Osoyoos and the turnaround there, and they can reach speeds of up to 100 kilometers an hour going downhill. But what a scenic shot we see from the helicopter. Our second place man, Ray Browning, isn't making any inroads at this stage of the game on Dean Lindell, but he's certainly opening up on the third and fourth place man. What we've heard is that Steve Wallach is coming through well, though. He's coming through the field, so we can look maybe in a few miles to see Steve Wallach. Here at the turnaround point, though, in second place, it is the 26-year-old from Park City, the pre-race favourite, Ray Browning, doing his third Ironman event of this year.
This also necessitated a lot of traffic control because at this time of year, this is a very, very busy holiday highway in British Columbia.
It is, and the organisers of this race have the local RCMP to thank for that. They've done a superlative job. You can see a traffic-free course, and what a spectacular view we have of our female leader going through, Paula Johnson. And there, the man they call the Moose, the man I said was coming through the field, he is now in third place overall. And that's where he finished last year, in fact. But this man has represented Canada in the America's Cup yachting team. But just last weekend, he did his final triathlon in preparation for this Ironman, and he won the Salmon Arm Triathlon comfortably. He's out for a big one today.
This Richter Pass is a relentless piece of highway, no matter what direction you're cycling in.
It's tough.
Doggone right it is.
Oh, come look at this as a rest break.
It may be a rest break, but that's one of the things all triathletes fear is a mechanical breakdown. That picture gives you some idea of the grades these guys have to climb. An arduous course under any circumstances. An event such as this always attracts some very special athletes, and one of those is this man, Hart Akerson, who does everything barefoot.
I first read about the Ironman in Island magazine, and it just seemed like a neat thing, and it was kind of a challenge for me to see if I could do that. 38 years old, and you just want to see how together you are, and so I tried to do it, and I finished. For me, winning is being able to just finish the thing. Actually, the reason I go barefoot isn't so much a question of why I go barefoot. I just never really saw a good reason to put shoes on. And ever since I was about 19 years old, I pretty much abandoned shoes. In my normal everyday life, I don't wear shoes. I appreciate the connection with the earth that you get through your feet. I feel it's a better way to do it. I encourage my children to go barefoot. I go in the woods and hike barefoot. If I run, I like to run. I run barefoot. And so it just stands to reason. If I do the triathlon, I do that barefoot also.
3 hours, 35 minutes, and 4 seconds in. And now approaching the turnaround point in the lead, as she has been since halfway through the swim, is Paula Johnson, our lead woman, and she's still on record pace.
She certainly is. In fact, I estimate her time to be about 15 minutes up on last year's record time. What a great shot we see there of Dean Lindell. You can see that focus and concentration on his face. A beautiful shot. There's his father, Vic. And in fact, Vic finished this race last year when father and son were both competing.
You're 450 ahead.
Unfortunately, Dean wasn't able to finish last year. He dropped out around the 14-mile mark of the marathon, but Father Vic finished in the time of just over 16 hours, his very first Ironman performance.
As Father Vic once more, very much into this race. But there's a long, long way to go yet in the Budweiser Ironman Canada. 19-year-old Dean Lindell of Victoria led after the swim and is still leading, and he's back heading northward up the Okanagan Highway.
And there doesn't seem to be any change in his cadence. He's still motoring, and I'm sure we're going to see a sub-5-hour clocking. And that will be an average pace of over 22 miles an hour. Here in Gallagher Lake, you see the chasing pair, Ray Browning on your left, on the right, Steve Wallach. Now, don't forget there are drafting rules here. Steve Wallach must not come within 3 bike lengths immediately behind Ray Browning. So you'll see him move to the left, his left, and there you go. And they have to be 5 feet apart from each other either side. And you can see Steve Wallach is making the pass. He's taking over second position as they come through Gallagher Lake. So they have just about 30 kilometers left to go to that transition area before they head on out to the final portion of this triathlon, the 26.2-mile marathon run. And there's our leader, Dean Lindell, coming in to make the second transition off the bike. And he's recording an overall time of 5 hours, 42 minutes, 24 seconds. That is incredible. This man has really opened up and is well onto record pace. But other than that, something he's done is set the first sub-5-hour clocking for the bike portion. He's just recorded a time of 4:52:59. This is an awesome performance, and you can see his second transition, the speed with which he's trying to make that. Every second counts right now for Dean Lindell. One of the things he's going to be afraid of is losing time to those second and third place men, because he knows they are faster runners than he.
Dean's wearing a heart monitor. He has been all the way through. You can hear his father Vic yelling every now and then, keep it at 155. That's a heartbeat of 155. And now the map shows you where he goes next, because he leaves the transition area once more back south on the east side of Skaha Lake down to the turnaround point. And that's where he's headed. He's got another 26.2 miles to go on foot.
And it's great for these athletes because it's an out and back course to Okanagan Falls. They'll be able to see exactly what's happening in front and behind them.
What he's looking for now is the watch for his heart monitor, and Father Vic, it comes to the rescue once more.
He wants to know where he's at all times. Congratulations, doing a phenomenal job. I mean, he's out in under 2 minutes. He's out until the run portion. So even at this point, he was 10 minutes ahead of the record to the previous first person climbing off the bike. There you go, and good luck out there, young Dean Lindell from Victoria.
And Dean is heading south through Penticton on Main Street. Just the day before Main Street, was the scene of the parade, and more since 1983, when it all began here with a total of 26 people entered. The city of Penticton has become more and more wholly involved. This year, including Canadians, there are 13 nations represented, including Germany, and as a matter of fact, there are more Americans competing in this triathlon in Canada than there are Canadians. This was the day before the race, and the local citizenry get very, very much involved. So many of them are volunteers, and they all turn out to greet the visitors from all over the world.
Coming up to the transition area, to the cheers and roars of the thousands of spectators, is the man in second place, Steve the Moose Wallach. His time will also be close to a sub-5 hour clocking for the 112-mile cycle segment of this Ironman triathlon.
And this is where things get very busy again, and though the spectators have to stay beyond the fences, they do get an idea of the intensity of these competitors as they go into the transition area and change over from cycle into the run. And they don't take long to change their garb either. They're out there very, very quickly, but you got to find your own bag first of all, and there's over 700 of them in there, so you got to know where you're going.
And there's our third place man. It is indeed Ray Browning. He's at a very fast cycle portion too. 5 hours and 3 minutes just for the cycle portion. His overall time, you can see on the screen, 5 hours and 53 minutes. So it's very close between second and third places right now. But 11 and a half minutes in front of Steve Wallach is our leader, Dean Lindell.
He's been out on the marathon course now for quite some time, as a matter of fact. This fella is composing himself by getting his shoes well tied and being ready to run once he hits the course. He's got to go down the east side of Skaha Lake to Okanagan Falls, and then when he's coming back, you'll be able to see just what his position is, because the majority of them will still be on the way down.
Indeed, and he's the man that both Wallach and Lindell will fear, because he's done 8 hours and 44 minutes for an Ironman when he won in Japan earlier this year. Here comes the Moose going out onto the run. You can see he's very stocky for a runner, but he's got lots of basic speed. He recently did 33 minutes for 10 kilometers.
So the top men are through the 112 miles of cycling. The temperature of the day is increasing as they get to what for some, certainly for young Dean Lindell, will be the most difficult part of this competition, the 26-mile marathon that completes the course. Check the watch and head south once more.
And there, a mere 20 seconds behind Steve Wallach, the most experienced Ironman triathlete in the field, Ray Browning.
So the top three men are underway in the marathon. They've got a long way to go yet.
They certainly have, but we've been informed that there's a big gap between these three and the fourth place man. Steve Wallach looking around to see Ray Browning, who you will see there just about 150 meters back.
At the best of times, the run is by far the most difficult part of the competition for Dean Lindell. And now, early on the marathon course, he's being passed by Ray Browning, who with this pass has moved into first place. And there's nothing Dean can do about it.
Well, it's about time I caught up with this damn truck.
You're right, Mac.
Took me 6 hours. You guys been driving too fast. I'm telling you what.
It's hard to believe that after 6 hours of intense effort, Ray's still able to be so calm, relaxed, and have a sense of humour. But the pressure's on him now to maintain that leading position over this man who's presently in third. It is Steve Wallach, but we expect him also to shortly pass a fading and pained Dean Lindell.
Paula Johnson, the leading lady, she was through the swim, and she still is here as far as the women are concerned at the completion of 112 miles of cycling. She is heading for a really remarkable time if she can continue this type of performance once she begins the run. Paula now approaching the transition area. She has no time to rest or even think about it.
30 minutes up on the record time.
She certainly doesn't, and her time under 6.5 hours overall. She's in 27th place, and alongside her you see the 1987 overall men's champion Tom Price. He's a Cormac's teammate first, and I'm sure that would have given her lots of inspiration and motivation during the bike portion. She's completed the bike segment in 5:32.
And the best time last year at this stage was 5 hours, 47 minutes, and 18 seconds. So you can see she's a long way ahead.
The interesting thing last year was until Julia Deck won in 10:28, no woman had ever gone under 11 hours total time for this Ironman course. So I'm sure if Paula Johnson can maintain what she's doing now, can hang on, she has plenty of time in which to set a new ladies course record.
And still they come.
And still coming in they may be, but going out now we see Paula Johnson well clear of the field, looking very good, and running is one of her strongest disciplines. She's comfortable, she's relaxed, she knows exactly what she's got to do. She'll have lots of support out there and plenty of aid stations.
Well, she's on the road again and looking very, very good.
What a great shot we're getting there of Ray Browning. He knows exactly what he's got to do. Look how relaxed he is. He knows he's done this sort of course many times before. He's used to the heat.
But the unfortunate young Dean Lindell, despite the heat, is having terrible problems. It's an Achilles problem with him as he watches another, Steve Wallach, go by.
So Steve Wallach now in second place overall, a long gap between these three and the fourth placer. It'll be interesting to see whether Dean can hang on in there. He's certainly done everything right for this event today, and that included eating. 2 days ago at the Carbo Party, there were 1,200 in attendance to feast and make pics of themselves at this Carbo. Lots of pasta available for them. A week prior to competition, an athlete will exercise to near exhaustion and follow with 2 to 3 days of very little carbohydrates, along with light exercise. This is the depletion phase. Another workout to exhaustion and 3 final days of near total carbohydrate consumption with no exercise completes the cycle. And that's what athletes have been told for years, but it's been proved to be something of a fallacy. Dave Scott, for instance, will recommend that athletes maintain about 70% of their diet being simple and complex carbohydrates. When we say complex, we mean fruits and vegetables. Simple carbohydrates, these are the ones available in such foods as honey, jam, desserts and candy. And you can see many of the athletes that were there having a good time. It's also a time when the adrenaline really gets pumped up, when people are looking at each other, psyching each other up. This man doesn't need to be psyched up anymore. He's coming up to the halfway point on the run. It is Ray Browning. Well clear now. He's moved well ahead, and he's coming up into Okanagan Falls, the turnaround point. Okanagan Falls, a community just south of Penticton, now specially designated just for Ironman Day as Special K Village. And picking up some refreshment there from the Special K aid station. You can see it marked on the map. Ray Browning out in front. And clear in second place is now Steve the Moose Wallach, well clear of Dean Lindell. And don't forget, Steve placed third last year in this event when he recorded an overall time of 9 hours and 35 minutes. He's well under that time if he's able to maintain the pace he's doing right now.
Back at the transition area, here's the lady in second place, 26-year-old Terry Martin. She's a nutritionalist, and that probably stands her in good stead. She comes from San Diego, California.
But in the transition area, there are many people who are taking precautions before going out onto the run portion. We have almost 300 medics there to help them out. And coming off the bike in third place in the ladies category, number 100, it is Julianne White from Barrie, Ontario. Not far behind this lady, Terry Martin, who's going out onto the run course, second place, but well behind our leader, Paula Johnson.
And now approaching the start of the marathon course, in third place is 26-year-old Julie White. She's an air stewardess from Barrie, Ontario.
And running is her strongest discipline. I certainly expect her to make up all sorts of ground on the marathon run. But one of the big stories of this race is this man, Jim McLaren, 26 years of age, but on October 20th, 1985, no one ever dreamt he would be here in Ironman because he was pronounced dead on arrival after crashing into a bus on his motorcycle in New York City. 3 years later, on April the 18th this year, he completed the Boston Marathon. He has been coached by his mentor, Pat Griskus, and Pat Griskus, many of you may remember, an amputee, was killed last year in Hawaii while training for the Ironman. So Jim is dedicating this race today to his mentor, Pat Griskus.
That's the only reason I went in this thing was for this.
Can't get any better than this. This is pretty good. Looking forward to this all day, huh? Yeah, you bet. Especially the one afterwards. Put on a good race.
I'm also putting on a good race is the man who's now in third place, Steve Mudgett from Denver, Colorado, a man who's done 9:25 for the Ironman distance in Hawaii last year.
But a long way back, and walking now, so he's getting farther and farther back, is Dean Lindell. He's going to finish this course on 2 feet, one way or another.
Here he comes up to that finish line. It is indeed Ray Browning. You can see the time on the clock. There's no doubt about it. He's going to set the first ever sub-9-hour clocking for the Ironman Canada course.
There he is, the man who sets the new standard by which this event will be judged.
You can see putting the medal around his neck, that's Valerie Silk and Lynn Van Dove. Valerie Silk, the owner of the World Championships in Hawaii. Lynn Van Dove, the race director for Penticton's Ironman Canada. This man now has 2 victories in Ironman to his credit this year and 1 second place. So first in Japan, second New Zealand, and now first in Canada. Ray Browning. And here comes the Moose. He's kept second place. He's going to be over 9 hours, but it'll be the fastest time ever by a Canadian, and he will be 26 minutes faster than his third place clocking of last year.
So overall, with the first 2 finishers, we have a record for the race and a record for the first finishing Canadian. That time, too, will go into the book for the Moose.
There's our third place man. He looks happy, waving to the crowd. It is indeed Steve Mudgett from Denver, Colorado, and he'll get a sub-9.5-hour clocking. It'll be very close to the clocking he set last year in Hawaii when he placed 19th. Here he comes up to that finish banner. Every single finisher in this race gets to cross that finish tape. And fourth place is going to be taken by one of Holland's very best, Marcel Hochsberger, now living in Redondo Beach, California. There you go, another sub-9.5-hour clocking, the medal draped around his neck. Coming in now, David Herr from Sierra Madre, California, also under 9.5 hours.
Everybody celebrates in his own... Oh, that's a nice way to celebrate, isn't it?
And one man who's certainly going to be celebrating is this man, 43-year-old Monty Holding from Victoria, sets a new world masters record of 9:35.15. And coming in 9th place overall from Burnaby, Rick Takash. Look how ecstatic he is. His time as he hits the tape, 9:44.27.
He couldn't quite believe it himself.
Indeed, that's his personal best by a long way. Congratulations go to Rick. And there finishing is Brian Countryman from Edmonton, Alberta. 9:47.17 for Brian. You can see two people have rounded that final turn, and the lead person there is John Coffey of Portland, and in fact John's going to be the fastest man on the run, the only person ever to go under 3 hours in the marathon. But here comes our female leader. It is indeed Paula Johnson from Tallahassee, Florida, and her time, easily a new record for the course. Look at the clock, 9 hours, 50 minutes and 13 seconds, an incredible 38 minutes off the women's record for Paula Johnson. And another lady who will also beat the previous Ironman Canada record, Julianne White from Barrie, Ontario, coming in to record a time, 10 hours, 16 minutes on the clock. This is a phenomenal performance. She has overtaken Terry Martin for second place. She will be the first Canadian female to finish her marathon time around 3 hours and 10 minutes. Here she breaks the tape, 10 hours, 16 minutes and 27 seconds. That is the fastest time ever recorded by a woman for the marathon run course. We'll be right back with more from the Budweiser Ironman Canada Triathlon. Back here at Ironman Canada, coming up to the finish line, the amputee Jim McLaren from Perryburg, Ohio. A brilliant performance by this man. You look at the clock, easily a new world amputee record. 12 hours, 16 minutes and 35 seconds. Pat Griskus would have been delighted to have seen what Jim has done here today. A brilliant race from Jim McLaren.
A day for record performances all round, and gritty ones too. Many hours later, Dean Lindell, as father looks on, finishes the course.
And what a courageous effort from Dean. He's been out on the marathon course for 7 hours and 10 minutes as he comes in to take 379th place overall in a time, 12 hours, 53 minutes and 27 seconds for this courageous 19-year-old. And here comes Hart Akerson, barefoot, 3 of his 6 children running to the finish line with him, and his time is going to be over an hour faster than that he recorded last year. Here he is, just meters away from that tape. 13 hours, 57 minutes and 24 seconds for the barefoot Hart Akerson. And the man who was declared dead at the age of 6, Bill Gordon, he also finished under the 17-hour limit of 14 hours, 37 minutes, 14 seconds.
And they're beginning to count the time down now. Is he going to make it under 17 hours? Yes, there's a big smile that says he will. The last man in, Chung Lee, under 17 hours a match is what Ironman is all about. To compete, to finish, to prove something to yourself. We hope you've enjoyed it all. Steve King, we'll see you again next year at the Budweiser Ironman Canada.
The Canadian Ironman has been brought to you by Budweiser. Beechwood aged for that distinctively clean, crisp taste that makes Budweiser the king of beers. For all you do, this Bud's for you. This has been a presentation of Bud Sports aired through the facilities of ESPN.